So this is going to be the basics of Lightroom. So I'm going to walk you through this entire panel. Okay, so we're going to slowly take our time. We're going to play with this photo here. It's got great lighting, good sky to play with. I have not touched or done anything to this photo. So I like to start always my photos with my little white dropper tool. Okay, and you want, so it says pick a neutral target. I usually always try and find a true black. Like this isn't actually black. This is not black. So then I will look for something that is truly white. Excuse me. And then it brings in those warmer colors, okay, because as the sun was setting, it was very warm and golden outside. And then I will usually, apply a preset at this point. So let's just look over and run through them. You'll always find your presets here, okay? And then I am also going to make videos of how you download presets and brushes, or not download, but install them into your Lightroom and Photoshop. That way you can always come back and check them and learn. So I'm gonna go with this one, and I'm actually gonna then take my dropper and fix it. Okay, so once I'm done here and it's at the brightness that you're going to want to start with, so this is your exposure. This is what is going to obviously brighten and darken your photo. And then your contrast. I like contrast in my photo, but I don't really ever use it with the contrast tool to get it. That's why it's set to a -20. Your highlights obviously will come from like your sky, or the snow on the ground is going to get blown out. My highlights are usually always turned down because I like my skies pretty vibrant. Your shadows, okay, you're going to make your photo darker. And my shadows are usually always turned up pretty high because I like as much darkness pulled out of my photo. Depending on the photo, so your whites, again, it's going to make it brighter or darker where you go. A lot of the times my whites are taken down completely too. Just depends on the photo. And then blacks are usually, some are right. So I mean, like if we're at 1 and then this is 100, it's usually somewhere, right around in the middle. So your texture. So you can really see it in her dress. So I come all the way down and it's going to really, really, really soften this photo. If you like the softer looks, there is a better way to get a softer photo because you lose so much detail this way, okay? So yeah, don't take your texture down too far. Clarity is going to make your photo, it's the same thing, you take it down and it's going to soften it a lot, take it up, but it's going to make everything too harsh, okay? So play with that and see where you want it. I usually bump it up a little bit, especially if I do take my texture down a little bit. So the dehaze tool is really fun. Let's see if I can find a good one to show you guys. So I'm gonna hop over here to this photo really fast. So the dehaze tool is perfect for if you have a big old glare over here and then they're kind of dim. You're gonna take this and it's going to dehaze. That's exactly what it's doing, is it's taking the haze of the sun and making it not as bad, okay? Excuse me. The dehaze tool also darkens your photos and it's, I'm trying to remember, it cools them down. So whenever, cools them down. I'll always come and add some more warmth back into my photos. Your vibrance tool, this one it's strong, okay? So, if you want no color, you can take it down. If you like more moody, you definitely want to play with these tools. And then obviously coming up is going to like really add a ton of vibrance into your photos. And then the saturation is also very strong too. You really don't have to move it much to get a lot of color from your saturation. These usually aren't moved a ton in my presets. I'm so sorry, you guys. I have a tickle in my throat. I got sick this weekend, and now I just have like this horrible cough. I don't use the saturation or slider a ton because I play with my saturations down here, and then I play with them with my brushes to get the saturation exactly where I want, because obviously now her hair is, I mean, my daughter's hair is really white, and so you bring this up and then it's pulling all the gold that was just shining off of her hair and her skin, and the yellow in the sagebrush, the green that you can see through the road. And so it's better to play with the saturation, I think, where you can control it. So get it pretty much where you want it, and then don't go too far with it because it is really easy to use it too much. So I'm going to come back to the tone curves. We're going to go down because this is how I do my work. And then I jump down to the calibration. The calibration is something that I had learned about in 2020, end of 2020. Never played with it before in my entire life. And if you're like me, it was probably just closed and you didn't really play with it. And so look at the difference of just turning your calibration on. It's a crucial tool. So let's play. You're going to drastically be able to control the tones of how your camera was taking these photos. And then you can desaturate them or make them way stronger, but not to, I mean, like, because even this is still not as strong as the saturation that we had up above. So you have your reds, your greens, and your blues. The blue panel is my favorite. It is what I say is like the secret to how I get my photos to look like my photos. I love the blue primary. It's usually like always turned up. And then this one's going to pull, obviously, so there's not a lot of green in here, but my camera knows that there is green in yellow, and it's going to pull a ton more of the gold in the sky in her hair and make it really yellow. So you can really, I mean, if there was grass, it'd be easier to see, but if you like more of like a dull green, you know, take it up. If you like more of to like leave your greens, then bring it back down and don't take too much out, and then you can really dim it or really accentuate those greens and those yellows and make them vibrant, make them bold. This is, I swear, the calibration panel down here is the secret to getting those bold and vibrant colors. That is what I tell all of my mentees. And then the blue is my favorite. I feel like you can't really like go wrong. Like the blue, and this is really beautiful. And obviously that's like super extreme, but if that was like the blue that you were going for, you just can't really go too wrong. Our mountains are super purple, and it worked like when our sun set, so it worked really good with her dress. And then obviously same thing. So all the saturation does at the bottom is it's just whatever color you do want. So if we came down here, obviously it's really popped because I have it up so high. And then obviously it's toned down a ton because you take it down. So just remember, when you get your colors to where you want with like your highlights up here in your tone panel, always go down to your calibration first. Always, always, always. And I don't use the effects one very much. Because I don't like putting vignette in mine, and I don't like grain. So if you do like grain, you don't want like a ton to add in there, but you could bump it up to like 25 and it's not too bad. Oh, I forgot shadows too, so this is going to just change the warmth of it, okay? It's just another like warmth tool that you can use, and depending on where your stuff is at, that's the colors of the warmths and the cools that are going to be around you. Sorry. And then this is obviously your vignette, or vignetting. I don't know how you say it. I always called it I don't even know how to pronounce it. Vignetting? Vignette? Okay. If your corners are super blown out, because sometimes those don't get as much attention as the center of the photo, then you can bring it down a little bit to pull in some detail to your subject. But I really don't use it ever. And then I don't use the transform tool. A mentorship that I took from it, she uses it a lot. That's like the only way that she actually will like crop her photos and stuff. And to me, I would rather go up here and go to my crop and be able to change it how I want to. I know, so if you do newborn photography, then you are going to want to learn how to use this transform tool, because there's going to be times where you want to tilt that photo to get, just a little better angle of the baby. So definitely, maybe I'll see if I can find like a really good YouTube video on it for you guys, because I am definitely not the person to teach you it, because I don't shoot newborns at all, and if I do, it's lifestyle. But so I will post a video in the detailed section below this video if you are wanting to learn how to use the transform tool. I always lens correct, okay? And so now you'll see that I am working my way back up instead of going back up to the top. So if I take this off, you can see that my camera naturally adds this vignette, or however you say it. I don't like it. Your distortion will start here, so it'll always be at 100. I always like to take mine down, because then it doesn't bubble out my subjects as much. So I always take mine down to 100, and depending on how strong it is, so obviously this is pulling, to me, too much from right here. You can see where I'm like drawing my line, where this is way brighter than this. So I just do it with what it did take out from enabling the profile corrections, okay? So this is where I was talking about where it is better for you, instead of coming and doing your texture and clarity here, I like and prefer to do it in my detail panel. So I like to do my noise reduction, which takes away grain. So if you like your grain, then you wouldn't want to have yours as strong as mine is. I usually have it anywhere between 40 to 60, just depending on the photo. If your client's faces just look too soft and something's off, come and take this down. And I promise it's probably the reason that's giving them that flat look, okay? Sharpening, I never go below, or I never go above 75, so it just depends on the photo and how much clearer I want it to be. But you can see how much softer it looks now, and then how the detail that it brings out, like just in her lace. But so I was trying to stay, it's usually about 70 is where I put like my sharpening tool at. You can see that this changes the tones of the, so I mean like if you guys haven't walked through every section of your Lightroom, follow along with me on a photo and see what it does. So her dress is very like steel blue now, and then bring it back up and it throws in some just more detail of color. That's going to just make it sharper. The smoothness, I mean, obviously that one's pretty explanatory. Smooths it out for you, just where the color is. So that's why it's this fine little detail that it's working on. It's not going to be as noticeable to the eye. You have to really pay attention to closely to what you are doing here. The color grading tool, this is a huge one if you guys are not playing with this. If you have a photo and you're like, oh, this is, I don't know, too dull or too cool, and you just can't really get it to warm up, look at the difference in how cool everything is now, and the difference of how warm and vibrant everything is. My little ring here is always touching the circle. Sometimes it's, you know, barely touching it, but it's never away from it. If you take it too far, then it really changes the photo. For me, too much. So I always make sure that it's touching it somehow. You really just have to play. So I obviously, if you follow my work, then you know I like my edits warmer. So I mean, because even this cool looks really beautiful. Like I would even be happy with that. And then just look at like the difference in what it can pull. And like this, some people probably really love that the way like the road looks in this, because it actually, that's to me exactly the color of the road as we're driving on it. So I mean, that's why I'm saying it is so important for you to always walk through all of this with me right now. Have it playing and we'll walk through it. You pull a photo up and mess with your color grading, okay? And I like to have all three up where I can see, but you can go and have just your shadows and your midtones and your highlights. Or this is global. I don't really ever do it that way. I like to be able to see. And then down here is your blending. So it's like what's going to like really blend it all together to look more smooth. Which this is nice if you, like I said, if you want the pavement darker, because then it kind of gives you like the best of both worlds. This messes with the sky a lot, and I don't really like what it's doing to the sky there. So that's what I mean by you just have to play until you find where you're like, oh, that's what I like right there. So if you know what these are going to do for your photos, you'll be able to pinpoint and play around more. And I'm like, oh, I want, you know, her dress more blue or anything. Then you will know that you can come to your HSL, your hue, your saturation, your luminance, and play and get that dress a different color and just mess around, make it more vibrant. So this one's pretty self-explanatory. If you've opened Lightroom at all, this is usually like your most played with before you like jump into anything else. And the hue is super sensitive, I will tell you, when you start there. I normally don't play with the hue at first at all. I will say, oh, I think this is just a little bit too orange and reddish, and then I would take some down or put some out, because I really don't very often say that my colors are too vibrant. You know, it pulls out of their feet and stuff. But so here's the thing with this, so you can click and bring it over here, right, and try and tone just her toes down. But it's going to, so see, it's telling you like where it thinks like these colors are pulling from. So don't just look where I'm typing or where I'm touching here, but also look right here. It's telling you like, oh, I think that this is pulling from the orange. So you click there and it's going to, you know, slide it up or down to get it. And I'm just sliding it by sliding my mouse, you guys. I wish that, like, I'm clicking on it, okay, and then I'm sliding my mouse to the left or sliding my mouse to the right to get it to move these sliders over here. So super cool tool. Same thing, you can click on any of these and mess with wherever, you know, slide it to the left or the right, try to get that color exactly where you want it. Come up here and you're like, oh, maybe we want this more red or more, you know, pinks, and it'll play with it for you. It's a really fun little tool. So you really just have to play around, but you like, well, you have to be careful understanding like what I just did. So let's redo that. So it made this color really pretty, but now her skin is super red, and I'm like, that looks absolutely terrible. Now she looks like she's really freezing. She was cold, so warming her up and making her look like she wasn't cold is the goal here. So if you see blues, if you see greens, you see your purples, play with it, pull it out, put more in. And then your tone curve. There is people who can rock the hell out of a tone curve. I will tell you what, I usually come down here and just mess with my numbers. It changes my line for me. And it's set on its S curve where it needs to be. It's really, it's an amazing tool. So if this is, I have a couple mentors that I don't play with my tone curves probably nearly as much as I should, but I do know a mentor who I can link down below who is like, she makes like bubbles and stuff with her freaking tone curve. It's insane what she can do. But I don't feel like it's necessarily something that like you have to master to get your photos where you want, because I like Photoshop. But if you're wanting to like just keep all of your stuff in Lightroom, you definitely probably want to learn more about the tone curve, as it can do a lot for you. We'll just mess with it here and I'll show you. So I'm clicking into my shadows right now, so you can see it's pulling up a bunch of my shadows. If I want to go down, it's going to make it a lot darker. And depending on where you click on your thing, you can see it says darks, shadows, lights, and highlights. So as you get up and higher, it jumps around. Okay, this is going to change your, for me, it would be like going down into your calibration is what changing a lot of this does for you. You're just barely moving your tone curve, which is fine. If this is easier for you, then jump down here and play with these tone curves first. But just remember, you barely, slightly have to move anything to get it to be like the colors that you want. Okay, so this is going to cool things down, warm things up, come down to your highlights. Sorry, you guys, stay at home, mom and dad, life problems. Okay, so that walks you guys through all of the panels and what it does and can do for you. I do want to tell you that I will come down here most of the time, and this is where I play with my tone curve. I will just be like, oh, I want my highlights to be a little bit more not so blown out. I want to just pop a little bit more light in there. I want my darks to not be so dark, and my shadows, you know, if you wanted that cement darker, you know, or more vibrant, and then I come here after I've done this, because you can only do so much with this, but then this will pull more out. Okay, black and white just takes your colors away. I have a black and white filter for you over here. They are amazing. I have a strong one, and then I have a muted one. So this one is obviously the blacks are a lot stronger, and then this one is not as strong. Because when you come over here, you can see obviously this looks almost more sepia tone. So then you're going to want to throw your blacks back in. Playing with your white balance really does affect the color of your black and whites. So if you don't have like a black and white preset that you are in love with yet, then play with that. Maybe you'll find something that you do absolutely love. All right, we are going to move on to, so this is, it's a good brush. Like again, like I said, if you're not going to go in to Photoshop, which I do have a basics tutorial for Photoshop as well, because Photoshop is just, I don't know, to me it's easier, it's quicker, it's more advanced. So this is a clone tool. So I wanted something gone here, and then it's asking me like where I want to pull from. Okay, that's all this is. You can zoom in, you can, like, you know, she's got some dirt on her feet, so you can make it smaller. And then, see, this is what I mean, where like, where I obviously don't want it to pull like bush onto her feet. Photoshop doesn't ask me like where I want it to pull from, it just pulls it for me. But it is a nice tool if you are still afraid of Photoshop. I get it, Photoshop can be scary, it's overwhelming when you first get into it. I don't ever use red eye. I fix all that stuff with brush. So let's go into the brushes. There's so much that can be done with brushes that you guys probably are not utilizing, okay? The new mask feature is amazing. So I always start by selecting my subjects. And it's going to show you like where it's selected, okay? Sorry, really fast. The same song has been playing for the last like 20 minutes and I want to hear something different. So you can see that it's highlighted where it has picked up your subject. And the good thing about this is, say it accidentally, like, I'll show you in a second, like where her foot, say her foot wasn't actually where I wanted it, come to the mask, click on it, click the subtract tool, and select, you know, your brush. And you can brush it off manually or you don't want it, okay? Say her hand was there, brush it off, okay? So don't be scared if it goes somewhere and you're like, oh gosh, no, you know, like it's just gonna keep doing this. Now here's your brush panel. Now it's going to just my subject, you know, make her darker, make her brighter. You can change just the warmth, the coolness of her. So all the same stuff that like we just went over, but the beautiful thing about brushes is now it's just on my subject, just her. It's like if you guys, if you guys are not using brushes, you have to start using your brushes. I know that some photographers rave about like radial filters and stuff like that. There's some that I follow and they'll just bloop and then they'll throw on the filter. I don't like doing that because I am really picky about like where my stuff goes. So you will never see me use a radial filter ever the entire time that I am doing this. There's like temps right here, so then you could just like click just shadows and it'll kind of like fix it for you. But obviously, I mean, for me it's quicker to just be like, oh, I want to up her shadows, oh, I want to take some highlights to her, but I want to pull it down just a little bit, you know. And then to get the background, I have brushes that I'm going to go over with you guys. These are mine right here. Yeah, I'll do my people pop right there. So then I create a new mask so that way I can get to the background behind her, because I'm going to want for me to warm that up, but I don't want her any warmer than she already is. And you're going to come over here and you're going to invert it. And now you see that everything else is selected. But I don't want to edit the sky just yet. So I'm going to subtract the sky from it, and it's going to do it for me. You guys need to be utilizing like the new update that it just gave you with the skies. It's perfect. I absolutely love it. So then come to your background pop that you guys get with this mentorship, which is really awesome. And for me, for this one, I probably just warm up that background just a smidgen. And I play with my hue a lot. That's like a huge key in a lot of my work. So down here, you see where it says use fine adjustment. If you don't have this selected, this thing goes wild. Like, look at those mountains. It is crazy. So use your fine adjustment, and then it barely just moves it. And like I like my sagebrush in Nevada to be a little bit more orange than so much of like a bright yellow. And then I'm going to, I'm not going to worry too much about the sky because there's a couple editing videos that you'll watch where it goes over like my skies and stuff like that. So to get I'll show you the linear tool. I do use this for my skies if I don't have a lot of color in my skies. So I'll pop that on, and then you can go down to a sky pop on my brushes, and then it gives you some color up there. Then you could like really drastically, if there was like no color to your sky, and then bring your saturation like up a ton. I usually always desaturate my skies because I don't like this blue. I like, like a jean blue is how I picture it in my head. And with her dress, I wanted the sky to be more purple to match her dress. So you can see when you're moving it, like where it gets thicker, then you're going to bring it down. And then she's obviously, the closer that the top line is to her, the darker she's going to get. So just pay attention to where your filter is landing. And then I'm going to show you guys this really cool, you can change the colors of like her dress completely if you wanted to. So I'm going to show you just on her dress. And for me, like I said, I don't ever do the radial filters, because if I were to just come over here and pop this on her, it's going to get her legs and get her hair or the white of her shirt, and whites are really finicky. If you I probably already have my blues pulled way down because I pull my blues out of like a lot of my presets. Let's see, I want to check really fast. Let's see, they're already pulled down. But a lot of the time, whites, snow and white clothes will either have a lot of purple or a lot of blue in them. So make sure that you pay attention to that. And like I have a lot of blue in my mountains, so I can't fully pull my blues out, or that's going to desaturate the whole photo. Then I would just come here and I would just, bring my saturation down here and take the colors out completely. So to change her dress color, you're going to come down here where it says color. Right now, obviously, there's no color effect. You can come in here and pick any color you want. Have a heyday, and then obviously you can still see like some blues. That's just where the brush wasn't as thick on those parts. So this is really a really like fun tool that I like you guys to know about. Let's just leave it pink, or let's do like because blue looks really cool. Let's do that, and it kind of matches like the mountains. And then I want to come up here and I want to talk about my feather and my density and my flow. So the size, how you can change the size of your brush really easy is by scrolling up and down like you were scrolling a page on like Facebook, you know, just scrolling down, scroll up and down, and that changes the size. And then to erase, you're going to hit Option on your keyboard, and then that changes it from add to erase, okay? And then I always have, you'll see my erase, my flow is 100%, because if I'm erasing, it's probably because I want just it all off. My flow and my density are always set at 75, both of them. My feather is usually set right around 60, because then it's really good about just getting, you know, where I'm putting it on there and not getting it onto the concrete or her legs. So make sure that yours looks pretty similar to mine right here. Find what works for you, okay? So that's really, I'm trying to think if there's anything else to really go over with you guys here. Skin tones, always go back through and add on a mask and just focus on their skin, okay? Because everybody's skin is going to be different. If they were looking cold, you know, then you can just warm them up. You can add some highlights to their skin. Like her feet are obviously really, really dark right here because they were cold and they were red. Brighten those up. Throw some natural skin colors in there to get them not looking so cold. And then I do this trick a lot with babies whose noses are really red, you know. And skin is super huge. Like I said, my daughter's hair is very white, and she was just pulling a ton of gold because of the sunset. So you can come and desaturate it quite a bit, and then even, you know, cool it down. So I mean, the possibilities are really endless with your brushes and where you want to go. And then you can see, you know, where a lot of brushwork goes into photos. Like, it's not just a click of a preset. So, I mean, we threw on, I think it was 2. So, I mean, look at the difference between where we started with just that to that. So, I mean, there's a lot to play with. Take your time, learn it, walk through it, practice on some old photos, go out and take some new photos of your children or your husband, or have him take photos of you, have your boyfriend take photos of you, find friends to take photos of, and then just practice, okay? All right. If you guys have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out, because I will be happy to help with anything. Yeah.